You had your chance and then you blew it.
That is the most absurd statement of the year.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, baby.
I'm in my zone, I'm feeling it.
Live from West St. Paul Studios, it's time for MinneZona Sports Live with DJ Matty C and Paul the Shield Vold.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back, yes. Episode 158, 158 episodes of MinneZona. Still surprises me to this day. We're doing well, very well. Anywho, I'm your host, DJ Matty C, a.k.a. Matt Callahan, a.k.a. Matty C, etc., etc., etc. And all the way from Granite City Studios in St. Cloud, Minnesota, Paul Volt, Shield. What is going on there, Shield?
It is still hot in St. Cloud, and it was probably a bad sign, hopefully not a sign of things to come, that literally minutes before the show started, the little fan I have down here decided to die and not work. Got it plugged in. It's working right now. I'm also glad to see that the clutches of Ohio did not keep you from coming back here for the show here this week. Glad to see, and you're showing off your, some of your spoils of war there with making the travel out east to Canton, Ohio, and also the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So looking forward to seeing what kind of shenanigans you and Papa Callahan got into out there. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of shenanigans, and the thing is that it lived up to the expectations, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy the vlog. Got a little swag going here and whatnot, but got this water thing, which has been fantastic, by the way. So awesome. I spent a lot, and it was worth it. So that's all I got to really say about that. But I can't wait to show you guys the vlog. It is in production right now. I am still working on it, so keep watching, because it may be ready next week. We shall see, but I want to make sure you guys get the full experience of what we have. And there's plenty of Patriots stuff, like I told Voldy before the show. Not just Patriots, but everything NFL. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic, and I'll get more in depth when we get the vlog. So With that being said, Voldy, we got a lot to talk about this week.
Yes, sir.
Vikings are, they got training camp. They're in pads now, so we're getting closer and closer to some preseason action. They're looking at a guard. I mean, it has been a long time since the Vikings have just had someone that is a top free agent in their position alone. So we'll be talking about that in a second. I think you're going to like the lower third as well for the Zoners. And then we're going to talk about the MLB trade deadline with the Twins. We'll get into that too. And our second thing tonight, we're inducting Dan Snyder to the Hall of Shame for top 10 infamous list. As you seen on the socials medias, this has been coming. This has been coming for a long time. And the fact that we've gotten to this point and it's official that he is no longer the owner of the Washington Commanders says a lot of good things. So we will induct, Dan Snyder to the Hall of Shame. We'll go over a lot of the things during his tenure, which was not great, to say the least. A lot of controversy there. So, and then ARAs, we got some wild talk. We got some Wolves. We've got some just everything and anything under the sun. Sean Payton and aaronrodgers. Ooh, boy. That'll be a good one, too. And then shield shoutouts for to cap things off. So, Voldy, I say we get things going with some Tater Tot Hot Take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
All right, it is time for Tater Tot Hot Take, and the lower third, for all of you that are on the socials medias or the TikToks and everything like that, I think you might understand my reference. The Vikings are getting more Riz per se. They got game and whatnot. JJ's got Riz. Apparently him and Livy Dunn hit it off pretty well, so he's got Riz.
Riz activated.
Yeah, Riz activated, exactly.
The Drip King,
Drip King, oh my gosh.
Oh my God!
Kirk, go chill! We love it. But speaking of Kirk, he was wearing number 66 the other day, even though a lot of people thought, that's in reference to Daltonrisner. The Vikings are looking at him at guard there, and possibly a possible signing for our Minnesota Vikings. We shall see. But it wasn't Kirk. Well, maybe he was. We don't know. I mean, but the real reason lies is for Ryan Wright and whatnot. Kirk was being kind of silly and whatnot, but that's the reason there. But Daltonrisner, second round pick for the Denver Broncos. He's kind of been on the Vikings' radar for a while now. A lot of people have been, clamoring to get him to kind of fill in Ingram and or Cleveland, because I feel like people have kind of been, the interior line is not perfect. Let's just say that. But I think this is a good idea for them to bring him in for a visit, see what he's got, and I think it's worth a shot trying to put him in there. But I'd rather see him at right guard instead of left guard, because I think Ezra Cleveland's much better. But Voldy, do you like this for the Vikings? And Zoners, let us know as well. Hosting Daltonrisner, and do you think he will sign with the Minnesota Vikings? What do you got?
I definitely don't think it's not a dumb idea, because we always know that the Vikings need help on the interior, on the offensive line, and there are a couple of pieces that the Vikings do have to work with. You've got some guys that do have a little bit of experience. Obviously, you do have Ezra Cleveland, who's been in the team for a few years, and then you got Ed Ingram as well, still trying to fully get himself solidified, not even in the starting rotation, but also just, getting comfortable in the NFL landscape as well. And obviously Risner has been around for a few years, so that he's been able to make a stance with himself, especially for the likes of with the likes of Denver in his time as well. So, with the competition that could quite possibly be, I think it's a good option. It's just how much are they willing to invest in a guy as well that is going to help on their offensive line if hopefully we don't run ourselves into another, who was it? Was it Jake Long or somebody like that?
Yeah, oh gosh. Yeah.
Just a rented, just a rent-a-player for half a season or something like that and eat up a lot of contract and a lot of money with that. Hopefully we don't run ourselves into another situation with that.
Yeah, and another thing too is that I almost wanted to the thing is I want to give Ed Ingram the benefit of the doubt in some of these instances because, quite frankly, he was a rookie and he beat out, a couple other guys that they brought in because, that was kind of the open position. But you always want to add guys that will protect Kirk, right? And after watching the Netflix, either if you watch the Netflix documentary or if you watch all those Vikings games this year, Kirk got beat up. He's working with a lot of, I think was it cracked ribs or bruised ribs? Either way, he's dealing with injury that is very painful, and he fought through that like a champ and like a warrior. So I don't blame the Vikings bringing in Dalton Risner, and if he comes in and he is able to take the job there at right guard, I'd be all for that. Now, here's another thing. It's not just Ed Ingram on that side, but they could also be bringing in Risner to be left guard because maybe there's been some deals with Ezra Cleveland. He's got the third most pressures, most hits, fourth most sacks among guards. His pass block efficiency is 65th out of 72 guards. So there's that possibility. And we always said, the interior is troublesome, but, there's most of the time they get it done. But I think adding Risner, and if they put in place of Cleveland, I still think Cleveland is a very good guard. I just think that he's more for the run game as opposed to pass block game. And I feel like that's been troublesome for him. But I don't know if the Vikings would put him in as a backup per se, because I feel like he's one of the top guards out there, and you'd think that you'd slot him in right away. But you bring him in and say, win the job, and see where it goes. But I'm guessing he's going to want a good chunk of money. But the good news is that the Vikings actually freed up some cap space with the Danielle Hunter extension, which happened over on Sunday. So there's some cap space that you can work with here. So if they end up signing him, I'm all for it. Let's get Risner in here and see what he can do. And as long as we can protect Kirk. So Gerald J-Man says, Jared Doyle, love the Hunter extension. I do too. And I wasn't sure at first. I thought they were actually leaning towards getting rid of or trading him away, which I don't know if I'd be okay with, because to be honest, where's our pass rush? Exactly. Davenport, he's kind of an anomaly. We don't know. He didn't have the greatest season last season, but with the Ants last year. So hopefully, Danielle should be fine, and I'm glad that they got it done. They give him the year and see what he can do this year and go from there. So that's fine with me. Hopefully Risner can come in here, and if not, then maybe the Vikings feel good about where they have the guard situation. So we shall see. All right. With that being said, let's get right into these Minnesota Twins.
Do it.
The MLB deadline has passed, and the Twins did make a deal, but that was like a week before the deadline and whatnot.
Yep.
But they were quiet. They're still leading the division. There's been some good news with that. The Guardians seem like they're kind of on a downward spiral. The White Sox don't seem like they can catch up. Kansas City, there's no way they're catching up. But the Twins being swept by Kansas City is not a good thing whatsoever. So we got that going for us. But Voldy, let me ask you this, and I asked the zoners as well. First of all, it doesn't surprise me that they didn't, make any moves because this is what they do. But at the same time, you got to add some bats. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's what you're lacking right now, and I think that is completely absurd why they, haven't. But Voldy, I mean, is this very concerning for this team right now, not making a move at the deadline? And they're like, oh, you don't know what happened behind the scenes. Who cares? They didn't get a deal done for
they didn't
specific
do anything
guys.
in the front half, They didn't do anything behind the scenes, in front of the cameras, outside, inside, nowhere, other than just that one trade for a reliever That was literally it. Nothing overly surprising by that. I mean, you look at what everybody else was doing. I mean, the White Sox made all sorts of trades as well. The Kansas City is getting rid of a lot of guys as well. You throw in that Detroit try to give away their two best players, and yet somehow didn't at the same time. And Cleveland, surprisingly, was a seller, yet they still got Noah Syndergaard. I don't know how that was them considered being selling, but literally everybody else is kind of phoning it in right now, even though the division is literally wide open, especially after the Twins got swept by Kansas City. The Twins are technically in front, but yet at the same time they're playing as if, or at least they're pretending as if, in their middle of the pack and trying to look towards the next season as well, while still trying to compete for a division title. This is why the AL Central doesn't get a lot of love for that regard, just because a lot of timidness when it comes to at the trade deadline and trying to get something figured out as well. Just because they like Cleveland, probably the biggest threat out of the lot was getting rid of one of their best healthy pitchers, and then also got rid of Josh Bell, their DH, who was going to, I think, he went to Miami, I think, or he was with San Diego, and I think now he's with Miami now and went at the deadline, but then everybody else is kind of selling right now, and yet the Twins did nothing. So they're really just going with they're going to stand pat with what they've got and see if that works. But I think they're really trying to see what they have internally, if that's going to make a difference. Like with Brock Stewart, Caleb Thielbar coming back as well, even though Stewart apparently had a setback with his throwing session, trying to come off the disabled list as well. That's not looking too likely for him to come back here in the near future as well. Caleb Thielbar, haven't heard much of anything on that, so hopefully no news is good news there. They're just going to win with what they've got right now, and right now it's not winning is that's in the formula right there for them. So just a real head scratcher, and just more confusion of what the Twins are actually trying to do here, besides just make it to the postseason. Literally, that's all that they strive for. It's like, let's just get to the playoffs, figure it out from there. Oh, we get swept by the Yankees in the first round. Well, darn, maybe we'll try again next year.
The happy to be here Twins.
The happy to be here Twins.
That's exactly where I'm going with my point as well. Them not making a move just solidifies what they are. Happy to be here. And, okay, well, we've got the division. We're fine. As Joe Ryan just gives up another home run. So there we go. The Twins down 2-0. He's been struggling, obviously, from what I just saw on the TV. So we got that going for us. Twins down 2-0. Obviously, things can change, turn around, whatever. But, St. Louis isn't very good this year either. So we got that going for us. But they're just... Every time we do this, it's almost like every year, they're going to finally make a deal, and they're going to add something, they're going to have some juice to that lineup, and they do nothing. They sit there, they twiddle their thumbs, and they think, we got enough guys, that we'll be able to do some damage and everything like that. While these other teams right now, either some teams are selling, if you're the Mets, for instance, they're selling. Obviously, Verlander goes back to the Astros, which is interesting in itself. But now you look at this team, and basically you're almost saying like someone else catch up to us and take the division. It's just like they're kind of phoning in it, like you said, Voldy. And it all comes down to those damn poll ads because they don't want to spend money. They don't want us to get guys that can make a difference. And right now, they had opportunities to trade some of these pitchers to get some hitting. It's like, well, maybe that takes a dip in pitching. So what? It doesn't matter. At least you're trying. They don't try, and that's why we're so frustrated as Twins fans because they have the limitations, and that starts with the poll ads. So you have the poll ads, you have Falvey and Levine just kind of taking orders from them, and it kind of goes like that. And wow, oh my gosh, Joe Ryne gives up another home run. So 3 home runs and a 2-run home run. This is awful. This is pathetic. I'm sorry. I went to the 2 games against the Orioles, and honestly, they were outclassed. And another person that should be at fault here, Rocco Baldelli. He said, we'll figure things out after the All-Star break.
Yeah, okay.
Look at what's going on right now. We're in is it the bottom of the second, top of the second, or top, whatever it is right now. They're down
Too early.
big time. And this is a problem. This is a huge problem. They're bottom second. They're down 4-0 now. I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, they're going to hit another one now because I don't want it to happen. And I like Joe Ryne, and I feel like he's the guy that's going to, be the ace. But now he's, sticking up the joint right now. So there's a lot to say. I really don't want to get, fired up on this because we've already talked about this. This is the same old BS with this team, and it doesn't change. Okay, so this is just the Twins in a nutshell, and it's disappointing. That they're not able to make those moves, and I mean they'll probably win the division, but then they'll get swept. If it's not the Yankees, it's probably going to be another team. So There's a lot here, and we're not very happy with it. Byron Buxton hasn't played well either. Those guys got to really,
for that matter.
Yeah, that too. And we thought Kepler was going to be a trade piece as well. That didn't happen.
Yeah, nothing. Didn't sell while the stock
I just shake
was
my
still
head.
high.
Yep. And you've been saying that for a while now, so that just proves our point. So, Zoners, let us know what you think about the Twins and them not being able to nail down a trade and get some more pieces to their lineup. But there's nothing else really to say. I'm not going to get in too deep with this. So, anyway, let's have some fun here, Voldy. It's been a long time coming. Dan Snyder is going to be inducted into the Hall of Shame for Top 10 and Famous list, and it's been a long time coming. And it all started with him just buying the team in 1999. He's one of the youngest owners. He pretty much drove the franchise into the ground, and and it cost them a lot of, good years that they could have possibly had. So we're going to dive deep into this as well. So let's get it going with our top 10 and famous lists. The Hall of Shame. Shame. Shame.
Here's the list no one wants to be on. Infamous Top 10.
All right, it is time for the Hall of Shame. Folks, we are gathered here today to put to shame a guy that has, for 20 years, been putting an organization under basically kidnapping an organization, not letting them branch out, and pretty much poisoning the franchise. That is the one and only Dan Snyder, Hall of Shame. So you can clap, you can boo. He's a piece of crap. He joins Infamous Jameis. He joins Johnny Manziel, or John Manziel, whatever you want to call him. It's been a long time coming. So, Voldy, let's just kind of dive into it. Let's start from the beginning. We'll just kind of do a little bit of highlights and whatnot of his tenure with these Washington Commanders. So, at first,
let's do it.
We start with him buying the team. He was 34 years old, youngest person to buy an NFL franchise. They came off a 6-10 season. And basically, they're kind of going through, it's a new regime. So obviously, there's going to be some changes and whatnot.
Right.
He said in his press conference at the time, in my dreams, he said after the sale was confirmed, we win the Super Bowl next year. Well, that's up for absurd statement. So by the time he agreed in principle to sell the Washington Commanders, is $6 billion. Snyder was ravaged by scandals, which drew to NFL investigations, legal inquiry. Formerly brash, big-time spending owner had been pressured into changing the team's name and logo, buying out his partners, eventually to awaken from a dream which had turned into a nightmare for many. And not just fans, but people that worked in the organization. So let's fast forward to June 2000. Hunter extension, I'm intrigued. What's the contract? 1 year, $17 million, $17 million guaranteed, $20 million if he does well this year. So there you go, easy. But so they go. The facade is that he goes and gets out he gets the top free agents. He pay him all this money. He does something to pull heads up. I can respect that. So there's that. So they add 2 future Hall of Famers. Obviously, now they are Bruce Smith, Deion Sanders. Oh, by the way, Deion signed a 7-year contract worth up to $56 million.
Deion was old.
He was old.
Deion was old. Bruce Smith was old.
Right.
They were both old at that time.
It's crazy.
This was 2000.
Yeah.
It's a quarter of a century ago.
Jeff George added to that as well. While the moves backfired. And guess who was the coach at the time? Uncle Norv! Uncle Norv. But unfortunately for Uncle Norv, he was fired after Week 14. Washington missed the playoffs, and Deion retired. So it's off to a great start for Washington. Yep. And then that July, Washington became the first team to charge for training camp, of course.
Amazing.
$10 a person to charge would help improve access to players. Yeah, I'm sure that really did.
It didn't.
And then let's fast forward to 2006. Their playoff drought, begins. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2005 NFC Wild Card game. That was the franchise's last playoff victory. So, yeah, that just tells you a lot. Right. Wow. Now, get this. Let's move up to September 2009. Washington sues fans for $3.6 million in the midst of the Great Recession. The team sued 125 fans for trying to back out of contracts to purchase season tickets. The team won judgments of $2 million against its fans, including many who defaulted on the contracts because of financial losses during the economic downturn. This is just insane. Oh my God. And so
incredible. And
here's another good one. October 2009, fans are barred from bringing signs and banners to games. They started the season 2-4. Jim Zorn didn't. He was the coach at the time. He didn't call plays anymore, handing it to an assistant, and that they had to lure out a retirement. The team banned spectators from bringing signs and banners into FedEx Field, citing security and comfort after an increase of the number of signs critical of Snyder and Vinny Serrato, a front office executive. Washington lifted the ban a month later. He didn't like what they were saying about him, and it's like,
amazing.
What have you done? You know, it's insane to me. Amazing. And here's another good one for Mr. Dan Snyder. Snyder sues Washington City paper for defamation. Sued the Washington City paper for $1 million, alleging that the 2010 article, "The Cranky Redskins Fans Guide to Dan Snyder," defamed him and included an anti-Semitic depiction of him. In an interview with the New York Times Magazine, Snyder said that he never read the article, which charted various public missteps, because he heard all of the details. So he didn't read it. He didn't read it. So, unbelievable. July 2011, unable to sell tickets, the team removes 10,000 seats from the stadium.
Crazy.
It's just baffling to me. And then team gets a salary cap penalty, May 2012. Facing protests over the team's name, Snyder says it'll never change. Well, it was forced to change not too long ago, Dan, in May 2013. Oh, and then, of course, this was just the beginning of the end, I feel like, for Dan Snyder. Cheerleaders accused the team of sexual harassment. 5 former cheerleaders told the New York Times that they were sexually harassed and intimidated by the team. I mean, this is insane to me. And he let this happen under his watch. And the thing is he was, doing all this stuff too. He was a part of the problem. Pressure from corporate sponsors leads to Washington to retire its nickname in 2020. They eventually did. Female employees detail sexual harassment and verbal abuse, citing 15 former front office employees. Snyder fired several top executives who were named in the harassment accusations and hired a Washington-based law firm. They looked into the allegations. They fired Wilkinson Steckloff. That's the law firm. I'm sorry. Larry Michael, a play-by-play broadcaster, a senior vice president with the team, retired after several women accused him of making derogatory comments to female employees. So it's basically just a complete and utter just mishandle of the organization, and obviously he's just letting all these top-ranking officials do what they want until he's forced to fire him. So the NFL took over the investigation and concluded that for many years the workplace environment at the Washington football team at the time, both generally and particularly for women, was highly unprofessional. In July 2021, the team was penalized $10 million and Snyder agreed to step away from the day-to-day operations of the team, handing the reins to his wife, Tanya. Oh boy, I bet she was just thrilled to take that over for him. So obviously, a lot of the other stuff going on. So you have Dan Snyder being a complete jackass. He is very, very deserving of the Hall of Shame. First of all, it's not only the environment, but it's just everything outside of that. And the fact that he sits around and thinks that he can get away with this stuff is mind-blowing to me. And the more people that have come out, and the NFL did their investigation and whatnot, they had no choice but to get rid of this clown. And I don't think Dan Snyder I don't think he's talked to the media, he's talked to anybody. Like, the guy's been silent. And maybe that's probably the best thing for him at this point. But at the same time, I mean, what are you doing? He was told that he had to, go to this meeting about, to answer for his stuff, and he didn't show up because he's a very busy man. He's often doing X, Y, and Z and whatnot. So this just shows how bad he is as an owner. And if you've looked at that field, we've talked about this numerous times on the show, Voldy. Mm-hmm. That is probably the worst field in the NFL. And many people have torn their ACLs. Adrian Peterson, Robert Griffin III, Joe Burrow, another one. So the list keeps going on and on.
The Alex Smith disaster.
Alex Smith, yes. Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, this is, you name it. Honestly. And and February 9th, 2022, accusers at Congress implicate Snyder in new harassment claims. So, he not only was letting this happen, but he was doing it himself. And he's married. Mm-hmm. This is unbelievable. And the fact that this has been going on for 20-some years since he's owned that team is baffling. And I don't understand how this can continue to go, or this continued to go on until he finally gave it up and said, all right, I'm out of here type of thing. So, it's about damn time. Voldy, I think this pretty much started, when we started the show, that, there's got to be a way to get him out. And finally he is out, and he's in the Hall of Shame. So, Voldy, what are your thoughts on this whole thing with Dan Snyder? Justice finally prevails. I think this is the last we've seen of Dan Snyder, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I certainly hope that this is most definitely the end, and we don't have to hear him ever again, other than that he's going to finally follow suit with everything that has happened to within the organization over the last few years. Of course, with all the ongoing litigation with the lawsuit of those Eagles fans that fell over the side of the bleachers that they were in and actually sued the Commanders, let alone that, even Jalen Hurts, who was down there, very well could have gotten hurt with the stands collapsing and those players.
That's right.
I should say those fans nearly collapsing on top of Jalen Hurts. The stadium falling apart. Terrible field management as well with the playing surface there. Obviously, the sexual misconduct and the harassment, the ongoing litigation of, who's cooking the books and the financial stuff as well. But really, a lot of things boil down to just acknowledgement is one of the things, especially very early on in his ownership of the team too, and especially throwing out the fact that he was acknowledging the fact that people didn't like him as well, because of a banning of signs coming into games, and then suing them as well for defamation and things of that sort. As soon as you start acknowledging that and taking action against it, that's when they know that they've got you and you've already lost the game. So from that point on, he has just constantly not been in anyone's favor from that point on as well. The funny part, I completely forgot about as well, the removal of seats from FedEx Field.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they couldn't sell them as well. Like those fans out there, of course, Washington, one of the oldest NFL football, I think one of, if not one of the original NFL franchises as well, with Chicago. I think Green Bay was in there, and even New York, and then also Washington in there in that mix as well. One of the core original teams that helped build the league as well, and it's a floundering organization, which is unfortunate because there have been some very marquee, excitable players that have donned the Washington colors over the last few years, and even some of the players that they have right now. Jumping ahead in time as well with, the whole debacle of free agency with Dion, and then also Bruce Smith in the mix as well. Jumping forward to obviously drafting RG3. You had Kirk Cousins in the early going with that. Mismanagement on both those sides. Obviously, RG3.
Albert Hainsworth.
Albert Hainsworth in that whole debacle as well. You had one of the most impact primetime players as well, and a very shortened career, unfortunately, as well, with Sean Taylor. Sadly, his life was taken away, and never getting his proper, given his roses as well. That whole debacle with a statue of him, which was literally just one of his game uniforms, and you put like a wire frame around it. That's not a statue, and literally announcing it on like a Friday before you're actually going to do it, instead of giving the proper build up for a proper, ceremony and acknowledging a player that made your team look pretty good when you weren't very good, and basically spitting all over his legacy as well. Besides the fact of Jackson Mahomes dancing all over the logo on the side of the team's field as well, that's a different story altogether. And all the ongoing legal troubles that just continue on. You knew this was the beginning of the end. You just thought it would have been a lot sooner. And as soon as the other NFL owners saying, yeah, we need to get rid of this guy, definitely knew it was going to be a lot sooner than later, especially with Jim Irsay, who's probably the most vocal owner besides like Jerry Jones in the NFL, saying that, yeah, we need to get this guy out of here. Certainly knew it was going to be a quick turnaround before that all happened. It's just very sad to see, because of the fact that even in their heyday, Washington was a very exciting football team to watch, and one of the premier divisions in football even a couple of years ago, when everybody was vying for 3 playoff spots and could potentially have 3 or 4 teams from the same division in the NFC East going into the playoffs as well. And just kind of this underdog mentality they've had the last few years. And they've had some exciting players that are still developing into prime talent as well. It's very exciting to see how it all turns around. I just hope this new ownership group cleans out the mess that Dan Snyder left and rebuilds it to what it could be, especially with what they've got coming back here over the next couple of years. They do have scary Terry McLaurin as well. They still have Ron Rivera as coach as well, with Chase Young getting back from a knee injury from last season, and hopefully get the stadium back up, built to where it needs to be. Hopefully a very much better playing surface, and invest in the team so that they can potentially move to the next level as well, to get rid of the stain that has been with, obviously Dan Snyder in his ownership over the last almost quarter century as well. So that team can get back to prominence of what it used to be as well, because, those football fans over there in Washington have suffered for a while, and now it's certainly they're due for something. So hopefully it is a much easier transitionary period from the last ownership into this new one as well.
Well, another thing with this too is that you mentioned some of the players that have gone through RG3, Kirk Cousins. The whole mismanagement with Kirk, I think, has been very telling. They didn't want him, and they wanted someone, that could give them the future, and they didn't think he was the guy. Well, how many quarterbacks have they been through since that? So a lot. And Kirk's been our quarterback for, it's 2018, so we're sitting at 5 years now, I think. So 5 years, and I'm glad that we have.
They've probably gone through about 5 quarterbacks in that time.
Yeah. Alex Smith and whatnot.
Alex Smith, Dwayne Haskins,
Heineke.
God rest his soul. Heineke, Case Keenum. There's
Wentz.
a few other guys on them. Yeah, Carson Wentz as well. They'll have Sam Howell under center this year.
Jason Campbell. Maybe, I don't know. Is he still around?
Back in the day,
Yeah, back in the day. Oh, gosh. So, like you said with Irsay, called for the removal. So, the NFL then released, after, they voted him out, thank God that they did, Josh Harris. I'm glad that he's got things going on with that. So after the sale's finalized, the league released findings from the 17-month-long investigation. It found that Snyder sexually harassed a woman who was both a former cheerleader and marketing employee for the team, and substantiated claims that the team intentionally withheld about $11 million in revenue that was supposed to be shared among the league's 32 teams.
Yeah.
what a scumbag. I mean, he's a scumbag,
Big
you
time
know?
scumbag, yeah.
And and the fact that he held his own private investigation to shut people up, and not only do that, but threaten to air the dirty laundry about all the NFL owners. Now, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors and everything like that. Either they're really good at keeping it, but you're not helping your cause here by threatening the other owners. You know, you're not helping your cause. And the fact that you weren't able to bring that information out just shows you how big of a clown you are. And, you know, Dan Snyder is the biggest clown there is, and it is a huge relief that he is out of the league. Now we can stop talking about how bad he is and whatnot. He's in the Hall of Shame. He's right where he needs to be. And he's a disgusting human being, and I'm glad that he is gone. So, welcome to the Hall of Shame there, Dan Snyder. Welcome to the Hall of Shame. So, that makes it three people that are in the Hall of Shame. One being Infamous Sheamus, who started this whole thing. And then the other being our John Manziel. And that documentary is coming out soon. Can't wait to see that.
That's right.
Oh, and I did wear my Johnny Manziel jersey to Cleveland as well. I got a couple like, why are you wearing Johnny? I said,
why not?
What? Johnny Football, man. Come on. Like, oh, he was a bust. So it was fun. It was fun kind of, you know, messing with some of those Cleveland fans, but it was good. So there we have that. All right, now that's going to do it for Top 10 and Famous List Hall of Shame. Dan Snyder, that's it. You're done. You're out of here, man. It's over. It's over. Adios. So, all right, Voldy. We got a lot of ARAs this week. We got to get to them. There's a lot of with Minnesota, with the Wild, with the Wolves, MLB trade deadline. There's been some deals made. Oh, and Sean Payton versus Aaron Rodgers. Wow, interesting. We'll get more into that as well. So, let's get it going. What's up? Upstairs or approved?
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, it is time for Absurd or Approved. So, Voldy, why don't you rattle them off for us, please?
Well, speaking of teams that are staying quiet during the offseason, well, one team that actually has made some moves in Minnesota is the Minnesota Wild, as they signed goaltender Filip Gustavsson to a 3-year, $11.25 million contract earlier this week that will solidify at least 2 goaltending positions here for the upcoming season. The 25-year-old is expected to compete with Marc-Andre Fleury for the starting job this season, but also the Wild do have top prospect Jesper Wallstedt waiting in the wings in the minors as well. Now, we've seen over the last couple of years, probably the last 10 plus years as well.
Yeah.
The Wild do this crazy thing, especially when they go in the playoffs. Let's switch back and forth with the goaltenders, regardless of how one is doing over the others. Gustafsson did make 37 starts last year, 22, 9, and 7 with 3 shutouts, 2.10 goals against average, 931 save percentage as well, and had a streak of 177 minutes and 13 seconds across 4 games of a shutout streak as well. Pretty impressive in that regard too. But looking at the overall makeup of the team coming up, especially the goaltending position, is it absurd or approved? Was this a smart move by the Wild to re-sign the young goaltender in Filip Gustavsson?
Stamp of approval. Obviously, you look at what he did this past season, and they're pretty much looking at him like he's the future, right? I mean, he's going to be the guy at some point. Obviously, they shuffled the goaltenders and whatnot. But apparently, from my source with Minnesota Wild, that and I quote, too, said that Billy G fleeced the agents during this time. And it's a good deal, not only for the Minnesota Wild, but for Philip Gustafsson as well. It's a smart move. You sign the young goaltender. There's a lot of promise that he has, and he's had some really good games already. I mean, there's a lot of positive things with Gustafsson in net. Obviously, you mentioned Marc-Andre Fleury. I still think he's got a lot left in the tank. We'll see how kind of that plays out, but I almost feel like they have a plan. They're just going to stick to it. So, yeah, I mean, it's got my stamp of approval. Let's see what happens this upcoming season, and I think he's going to be even better. So, stamp of approval. Voldy, what do you got?
Yeah, I really like the fact that the Wild did get him in a good extension, a good contract as well. Obviously not front-loading it too much with the money he's going to be making as well. You know, him and Fleury going to be battling for that starting position. That's going to be good for the both of them because obviously the strong point of the Wild there, especially down the stretch, was the fact that they did have that goaltending, which did come back to hurt him a couple of times, but he did, with Gustafsson, have that impressive performance in Game 1 against that series against Dallas as well. 51 saves and a double overtime win for the Wild, too. I just think that now that you've invested in this guy, we know that Marc-Andre Fleury is in the back end of his career, but still very competitive as well. We'll give him that. Still putting up great numbers, even in his advanced age and time as well in the league. I just really think that having him in the books with Philip Gustafsson is going to help this team grow a little bit more. And obviously you do have Jesper Wallstedt, who will get some more seasoning down in the AHL with the Iowa Wild too. I don't hope that's going to come to maybe a trade bait situation with Wallstedt and maybe getting moved somewhere else. But I really hope that at least with Gustafsson that they can have that, scratched off the list. They can move forward and maybe go get maybe some defensive help as well and really start building this team to do anything besides just get to the first round of the playoffs and lose in 6 games. So it's got my stamp of approval as well.
It's one of those things where it's kind of they're almost to that point of they'll have enough cap space once those contracts from Parise and Suter kind of dissipate. So it's good that they make this deal now, I think. So let's go. All right, next one, Voldy.
Well, in a surprising move here, especially with a player that is in the dominant stage of his young career, Minnesota Timberwolves star guard, that being Anthony Edwards, is going to be wearing a new number here this upcoming season.
Ooh.
And that is going to be switching from number 1 to number 5, while the previous owner of number 5, Kyle Anderson, will be switching to number 1. So number 5 for number 1, and just a basic number swap there. As definitely built an identity already with Anthony Edwards in his short career, wearing the number 1. Now he's going to be switching to number 5, and now going to create a whole bunch of confusion as well with uniform personnel, and especially with those that have already bought the number 1 jersey for Anthony Edwards. Now we're going to be looking at the number 5 Anthony Edwards, and heaven forbid if somebody bought a Kyle Anderson jersey last year, now they're going to be even more confused to begin with. But do you think it's absurd or approved with and switching his number with Kyle Anderson for the upcoming season?
Well, it's got a lot of meaning because he was wearing number 5 at Georgia. He was wearing number 5 at in high school. I think they had a video of him talking about that. So that's the reason why, and he was able to switch with Anderson. But let me get to the jersey part of this because I agree with you. Dalvin, when he switched from 33 to 4, I said this. There should be a jersey exchange where you can put in your 33 for your 4. In this instance, put in your Ant 1 for 5. I think that they need to do that. Now, I understand you got to at least have a fee and everything like that, but in this case, I mean, it shouldn't be that much. I mean, what, like $40 to swap it, to get the 5 and for the 1 and whatnot. Unless you collect jerseys and you're fine with that. But I mean, it's a lot of money. I'll say that for those jerseys. But there should be an exchange that you can do. I don't think you can do that with the NBA. They certainly couldn't do it with the NFL. But I feel like fans should have the right to swap out jerseys so they can get the 5 or the 1. I mean, I feel like they should do that. But Kyle Anderson to 1. I don't know how many have Kyle Anderson jerseys. If you do, I mean, great. I think you as well should be able to swap in the new number and whatnot. So it's got my stamp of approval. From that perspective of, it means something to him. That's fine. I really don't have an issue with it. But from a marketing perspective, now everyone's like, "Oh, I got an Ant jersey, but it has number 1." Like, come on, man. But I get it, but at the same time, too, it's like, jeez. So there should be an exchange. I feel like so. Stamp of approval. I got no problem with it. Voldy, what do you think?
Let's just hope the number 5 doesn't come along with the lack of punching ability for Anthony Edwards switching with Kyle Anderson there, or even the number 1 going with the chair throwing ability that Ant had last season too. But yeah, I mostly come from the standpoint like, this is annoying. Now I got to get a new jersey, or I got to update now. I can't have Anthony Edwards number 1 jersey and be looking like a scrub nowadays, especially with now Kyle Anderson wearing number 1.
Yeah.
Ew, that's gross. Ew, all that together. I don't have a problem with it overall. Now it's just like, great, that's fantastic. But what people should be looking out for is now Team USA basketball Anthony Edwards number 10 jersey as well. So
ooh,
that could be coming here. Yeah, just saw that a few hours ago as well. It's wearing the same number that Kobe wore when he wore Team USA as well. So that's pretty cool there. But it's got my stamp of approval. It's just more of a just like, oh, come on. More effort than what it's worth.
We should talk to Zappa, and maybe he can talk to some people and get that figured out. So we'll bring that up. I'll keep that in mind. All right, next one, Voldy.
Well, touching on the Major League Baseball trade deadline that did wrap up here earlier this week, we talked from the Twins' perspective. Now let's take a look at the whole grand scheme of everything as well. The trade deadline, big players moving to other teams, big contracts that they signed last year don't exactly mean much anymore as well, because no investment in the team, especially after being with the team for probably about 6 months. Now you're going somewhere else to probably play there for the next 4 or 5 years. One of the big trades that we did see, or a couple of big trades as well, going from the New York Mets, of course, with 2 of their stud pitchers as well in that fire sale of a team, Max Scherzer going to Texas, and Justin Verlander going back to Houston, basically on a 6-month rental after basically winning a World Series, signing with New York, and now he's back in Houston altogether. Looking at the overall scope of how the baseball trade deadline end up, what do you see as who had the biggest moves, and who do you think will be making that big push down the stretch based off the moves that they had this trade deadline?
Right. Well, I just want to say from a perspective that Justin Verlander was moved back to Houston. Why couldn't it just be the Twins? I mean, why? Why not? I mean, you guys all know the reason why. I mean, you guys all know the reason why I don't want Justin Verlander here is because, well, his wife is Kate Upton, so we got that going for us. So, but I should chill. Kirko chill. But at the same time, I get what the Astros, they want, they're familiar with them, they want him there, and obviously the Mets are just, the Mets, I should just say that. The Yankees are trying to make a little bit of a push now. They're kind of lagging behind. They acquired Spencer Howard from the Rangers, so that is something that I think to watch out for, because the Yankees do need that, especially with Aaron Judge being out for still a good period of time here. The Red Sox acquiring Luis Urias from the Milwaukee Brewers, so Voldy, you got good stuff coming your way. But the one that kind of sticks out to me the most, and they're winning the division right now, is the Orioles. They go out, they finalize a deal for Jack Flaherty from the St. Louis Cardinals, obviously. And the Twins are down 7-0, by the way. So
Cool.
they're bottom of the fourth, FYI. So I'd probably say the Orioles. I think they're going to make that push, and they definitely need it. They've been kind of sitting around, middle of the pack there for a while. Now they're leading the division. They've got a lot of good players right now, and they're playing well. And I think Scott Baker's on that team, former Twin, to add on to that. So we got that. So yeah, I'm gonna say the Orioles, but watch out for the Rangers and with Scherzer and whatnot. But watch out for not only that, but those Stros. You got Verlander for a pretty good thing there. So yeah, that's what I got. Voldy, what do you got?
One team that continues just to surprise how many guys that can actually fit on their squad that were like all-stars in the last handful of years. San Diego somehow continues to get more and more guys in their team. They split their team in half. They've got like 2 solid A teams on like different major league rosters as well. I know I was looking at their deadline as well. I mean, they did get Scott Barlow from Kansas City, good relief help for them as well. They did end up getting Rich Hill and G-Man Choi from Pittsburgh to add some depth, of course, in the rotation, and also some hitting ability and some backup first base looks as well, especially the fact that they've got so many guys already on their team to begin with that have that all-star caliber or were all-star caliber players years ago, trying to make that push out west, especially when you're looking at the Dodgers too and how they've been playing here throughout the season. They want to make sure that last season just wasn't a fluke, so they continue to pile on guys too. Phillies are a very interesting team. They did get Michael Lorenzen from the likes of Detroit. He was on here this season as well, so a little bit of help in the rotation. And if it was still traditional National League rules as well, Michael Lorenzen can hit the crap out of the ball too. Too bad that's no longer a thing. That's another story for another time as well. So I really think those two teams certainly made a lot of noise for this. I think they are going to be making that big push too, especially now that you've got even the likes of Bryce Harper back, playing first base for the Phillies too. Him hitting in the lineup as well. See if San Diego can really solidify things in the back half of the season to at least make a push, even though it's going to be tough sledding for them out west at that same time. But they certainly do have at least enough of the star caliber to get that figured out. Now, if they can just piece it all together, I think they can put together a pretty nice run there too.
Yeah, and we shall see. There's a lot of teams that are going to be in the hunt, and the Twins at this point, probably will win the division, but then get swept. So, unfortunately. Yep. All right, next one, Voldy.
Well, coming into the first full week, of course, NFL training camp, one new head coach in a new city as well, that being Sean Payton for the Denver Broncos.
Boo.
Had some things to say about the previous regime for the Matt Hackett-led Denver Broncos as well. And a quote that he did have, so of course, with reporters earlier this week, or I should say this past week, that Payton called the work and Nathaniel Hackett and his staff did with the 2022 Broncos, quote, one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL, and said there were, quote, 20 dirty hands around quarterback Russell Wilson's career worst season, including just 16 touchdown passes and a league-high 55 sacks. And Payton did sum it all up with saying, everything I heard about last season, we're doing the exact opposite. Now, Sean Payton and his coaching staff in previous terms as well hasn't exactly been the most clean-handed either in that regard too, but looking at the comments and even poking holes, of course, with now Nathaniel Hackett working with the Jets, or at least looking at the new employer that he does have with Hackett being offensive coordinator for the New York Jets. Now poking a little bit, it doesn't seem that to happen often, as Payton was quoted as saying, where an NFL team or organization gets embarrassed, and that happened here. Part of it was their own fault relative to spending so much time trying to win the offseason, the PR, and the pomp and circumstance, marching people around, and all of this stuff as well. And also poking a little bit of fun at the expense of Nathaniel Hackett, even the New York Jets, too, with those comments that Sean Payton had earlier this past week as well. Do you think it's absurd or approve with Sean Payton's comments on Matt Hackett's job last season and looking ahead at what this season will bring for the Denver Broncos, too, under the regime of Sean Payton?
It's no surprise to me.
Right.
You know, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody at this point. But, you know, or actually, for some people, they think that this is, why would he say it? Like, I'm surprised he said that, you know. We've known this since 2009, maybe even before that. He kind of just says what he wants to say, and the fact that he said that this was one of the worst coaching jobs. Well, I had on my Fox hat, and I was, you know. Listen, there's no excuse, and it's never his fault. It's never his fault. He never sits back and says, you know what, I could have said something better. He didn't really apologize. He's not even going to call Hackett to say, hey, man, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean it. No. He just said, well, I had my Fox hat on and blah, blah. Look, was it a bad job last year? Yes, it was. It was really bad. I mean, he called it out, but for him to go in depth like that, I mean, that's low. That's pretty low. And especially when you are a coach, NFL coach of a team, and you just rip how bad, you know, the coaching was. And I mean, that's almost unheard of. You know, I mean, it's like, wow, he's really going after him and whatnot. And the funny thing to me is that, you know, Rodgers and Hackett have the relationship being in Green Bay and whatnot, and Rodgers like, keep my coach's name out of your mouth type of thing, and all that. The enemy of my enemy is my friend? Is that what we're doing here? So, wow, I mean, he's not wrong and whatnot. Here's the thing. Sean Payton was not wrong that they did a bad job last year, but to go out there and to do it publicly, come on, man. I mean, leave it to the guys that are doing a show right now that, you know, can tell you if it was bad or not. And everyone thought it was a terrible job. And the thing is, it's not all of Hackett's fault. Put it on Russell Wilson. Put it on some of the, you know, offensive line. Put it on, I mean, the blame goes all around with the team. But yes, I mean, it was one of the worst coaching, you know, job. He had one of the worst seasons, and especially you get ousted after one season, says a lot, but you don't need to drag him through the dirt like that. And this is exactly what Sean Payton does, and he gets away with it, and people keep, you know, like, oh, it's just Sean Payton, that's just how he is. Just stop it. Just stop it. So, as for expectations for this year, I think at best they'll be a fringe playoff team, but I don't think they'll make it. And especially the way that Russell Wilson played last year should tell you a lot as well. Maybe there's some things going on with him too. So we'll see how good they really are. So I think it's absurd what he said. You don't need to make it out publicly like that. And, you know, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with Rodgers. Keep his name out of your mouth. So there we go. Voldy, what do you think?
You know, I just really think you would, if you were professional enough as a head coach, that you would do everything that you can to not bring up last season. Yes, last season was last season, but I wasn't here last season, so I can't tell you what happened last season from the outsider's perspective as well. You would think Sean Payton would take that high route. No, he's going to try and make it about him, and he's going to do everything that he can to rub in the other guy's face and put as much blame on him as possible. Let's not forget that these two teams face up against each other in week 5. So really going to be keeping my eye close on that matchup coming up here in the near future as as well. But the comments themselves, they do have validity. It's just the route that he took to get to that point that really irks me in that regard. Because, like, yes, he tried. First year head coach, previously offensive coordinators, all of that sort as well. Look, some coaches just can't be head coaches, and sometimes you got to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
We've seen it before 1,000 times. Some coaches are fantastic coordinators. We've seen it with Nathaniel Hackett. We've seen it with Leslie Frazier. We've seen it with Wade Phillips. We've seen it with tens of 20s of guys that have been great coordinators, not so good head coaches. Dennis Allen, who was a not so good head coach. Then again, it was the Raiders. So what do you expect from that point?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But, looking at the other side of everything, too, I would really think that Matt Hackett would have a little bit now of a chip on his shoulder to prove everything wrong. That what happened it was, of course, he has to take the blame for it because he is the head coach. But the way Sean Payton just threw him right under the bus and they kept backing it back and forth to make sure that it was fully flattened. Nathaniel Hackett under that bus driven by Sean Payton. That's what really seems to bug me the most is that how much not only he just, he presented the comments, he really leaned into it and just twisted the knife just a little bit deeper each time he kept saying something. So that those comments, they just really, they do have validity, but I think the way that he said it, it's completely absurd.
Yeah. And it's Sean Payton, and obviously we all have disdain for him, and it just, this doesn't surprise me in the least, and I think everyone else can agree. So, all right, we're sticking with New York. So last one, Voldy.
Yes, speaking of the Jets, of course, quarterback Aaron Rodgers and also the New York Jets have come to a friendly, contract extension. 3 years, $112.5 million deal, including $75 million being them fully guaranteed for 2023-24 as well, with due to make, of course, about $110 million in guarantees with that contract to be playing. But this money much less than what he would have gotten if he stayed in Green Bay. It was quoted as saying that Aaron Rodgers was 90% retired before he went into that darkness retreat back in February. And of course, the Jets came calling. They made the trade. They got him. Now they signed a deal. 3 years, $112.5 million deal, but definitely would have gotten more if he stayed in Green Bay, but just wasn't going the right direction for Green Bay and for Aaron Rodgers too. But looking at, of course, the status of the contract now with Rodgers in his training camp routine now with the New York Jets, you see this contract extension kind of being a final, giving him the bird, if you will, Aaron Rodgers to Green Bay with this drastic pay cut that he decided to take, as opposed to just getting the money and riding the pine in Green Bay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is totally an FU to Green Bay. Stamp of approval all the way. You know, what's interesting to me is that not only the Green Bay Packers have had 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks come through. And yes, I know, I said Rodgers Hall of Fame because, yes, he is that good. Sadly. But the way that they do things is they have the career, and once they're kind of at their peak and you see like maybe a smidge of regression, they're going to replace you. See ya, bye-bye. And the fact that Green Bay, and obviously Rodgers, he's been vocal about the frustration with Green Bay. And the Packers would never budge on, listening to what he, basically bold-faced lied to him, and, they draft a quarterback at, in the first round with Jordan Love. So now you're in the situation where, it's like, well, I'm out. I don't want to be here. And obviously you're not going to make the changes necessary. So then Rodgers eventually said, got out and forced his way out. Or he's going to retire or whatever. I don't care. He was going to play. I don't care what he says if he's 90% retired going into the darkness retreat. That's a bunch of BS. But with the new deal, that just kind of shows, screw you, Green Bay. I'm happier here, and they're doing what they're supposed to and adding the players that I want. And they have a lot of young guys. They have, Wilson. Garrett Wilson, not Zach Wilson. I mean, obviously he's backing up Rodgers in this instance. But also, if you add the likes of Dalvin Cook, you bring in your buddy Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and whatnot. But if you add a Dalvin Cook, they could be contenders. But the thing is can Dalvin stay healthy? Can Rodgers stay healthy? The whole team. So this is a screw you to Green Bay. It's got my stamp of approval. Because Green Bay, I just think, thinks that they can. Now, it's worked the past 2 times, but can they get? Is third times the charm again? I mean, is it going to be? Is Jordan Love going to be as good as Aaron Rodgers? I would say no, and that's not because I'm a Vikings fan, but I just don't see that happening. Or Favre, not at that point. So, I think this was middle fingers to Green Bay, and basically saying good luck without me. So. Yeah. Voldy, what do you think?
This is as much of a passive-aggressive double bird to Green Bay as it can be, in homage to that Midwestern living that Aaron Rodgers had been experiencing for the last 15, 16, 18 seasons, or however long he's been in Green Bay. Just taking that all in, and of course, obviously he's coming into this Jets team and building guys and building team around him as well. The guys that were there, the guys that are coming in here for this season, and he's looking to win right now. Like, if he doesn't win one within this year or next year, I don't know if they are going to try and win a Super Bowl or not. But that's the type of attitude they're coming in, especially with Tyler Conklin as well. Friend of the program, Gronklin as well, saying the message we're getting is he wants to win a Super Bowl. So that's why he went to the Jets. Nice, young, promising buildup of a team. Veteran experience coming in as well. Very similar to what we saw with Tampa Bay a few years ago. Tom Brady bringing him and some of the boys down to Tampa Bay. And, that was as much of a one-and-gun situation that they had down there, reaching and winning the Super Bowl in that time as well. I think that is as much of a big FU to Green Bay as it can be, especially the fact that he is taking less money, more guarantee, because he, is still performing at a high level enough that he did win, MVPs last couple of seasons too, leading up to, of course, the departure from Green Bay. Still at that high caliber player that he is at. Now he's just in the part of his career where he knows he can still play. But Green Bay thought, let's give the young guy a chance here to at least, get us going into kind of a transitionary period, even though the results weren't fully there for Green Bay last season, even though they had a chance to, make the playoffs, but they unfortunately didn't make it, or I should say, fortunately for us Vikings fans, they didn't make the playoffs as well for Green Bay. But I see it there as him taking less money, as showing look, I don't need the money. I'm just going to go out here and just to piss you guys off because you gave up on me. Now I'm going to show you, an angry Aaron Rodgers playing in the AFC, which is also another factor because it's the AFC and it's as loaded as can be with top talented quarterbacks and of course top caliber teams as well. It's all right, I'm not going to win it here in the NFC. Watch me go win in the very vaunted not only AFC but the AFC East as well, which is very much a competitive division as well. So I think him taking that last little stride there is definitely approved in my mind, especially with the taking less money over Green Bay's, much more guaranteed, and him having to take it easy over the last couple seasons.
Just kind of that final, you're going to regret this type of thing. So we'll see. But like you said, the AFC
like Michael Jordan, Last Dance, I took it personally.
Yeah, exactly, and I took it exactly. So we'll see what happens in New York. All right, great job with ARA this week of Voldy, as always. And it's time for Shield Shoutouts. We got a couple Shield Shoutouts coming people's way, so I say we get it going with some Shield Shoutouts.
Shield Shoutouts.
All right, Shield, who ya shouting out tonight?
Well, unfortunately, a short NFL career for Sony Michel, the longtime NFL running back. Well, I shouldn't say long time. He only played 5 seasons, and now he's decided to hang up the cleats. 5 years in the league. Played for, of course, the New England Patriots and also the Los Angeles Rams, where he's part of 2 NFL Super Bowl winning teams. One with the Patriots, one with the Rams as well. And unfortunately is hanging them up here, especially after running into injury issues in the, going to say now the back half of his career, especially after joining the likes of LA too. Just didn't quite get the same amount of production as he did in the start of his career coming out of Georgia to the Patriots. So happy retirement to Sony Michel for the, of course, from the Rams, and of course his most notable time with the New England Patriots as well. Do got to say big thank you and big shield shout out to the Stearns County Sheriff's Office, Sartell Police Department, as well as the Boston Police Department that have added patches to my collection as well. You follow me on social media. I've been bombarding you over the last couple of weeks here. Getting back now, settling into the St. Cloud area, reaching out to some of our fine law enforcement, first responders as well, to see if they would be willing enough to donate to my collection as well. We're up to 120 patches in law enforcement and, of course, with first responders as well. And always looking for more. So if you know anybody, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to get a hold of me on the social medias. I will definitely not turn them down at any regard as well. So that's going to do it for Shield Shoutouts this week.
Well, I know of one on the way, so be on the lookout, zoners. And then Sony Michel, that's it's a little surprising because I feel like he's got some in the tank. But, hey, you know what? If you got 2 Super Bowl rings, I mean, I don't blame you. So.
Definitely not.
All right. But great job with Shield Shoutouts this week, Voldy. And as always,
thank you, sir.
Man, it's we're on to 159 for episodes, but one thing that hasn't changed. Oh, we've got merch, people. We've got lots of merch. We've got the stickers, brand spanking new. If you want some, message me, message Voldy. We will hook you up with them. I mean, they're fantastic. $2 for small ones, $3 for the big ones. And then make sure, if you guys want shirts, we still got some shirts left. Limited edition shirt, XL, that is around. We can get that to you, $20, $5 shipping for those bad boys. And there's some more stuff on the way, so be on the lookout. We will be on the socials medias, keeping you up to date with that. Make sure you check out W2 Performance with Will Rattel. At www.w2performance.com. Thank you to National Fleet Graphic, Crown Rental, Tyler Knutson for the stickers as well. Make sure you check out the victorious P.O.D, Tyler and Jack Vickers. It's coming up, fantasy football. Be ready. And then check out TLS Performance, Troy Stoudemire Jr. on the socials medias. And then check out Popcorn Bucket List with Omni Entertainment. Nick Dahlhoff, Ryne, Myhrberg, Ryne, our guy. They had their 100th episode, so congratulations to those guys on their 100th episode. And I said, stop catching up to us. Come on, I mean, we did our 100, we did our 150. I'm just kidding. But they got a lot of good content, so make sure you check them out. And congratulations to those guys on their 100th episode. So that's going to do it for episode 158. A lot of stuff coming up. The Call to the Hall of Fame. Ooh, we got it coming up here, baby. We cannot wait. Hello. Yep, we got it. And it is in production. There's a lot of cool stuff. Yes, there is a cameo of Papa Callahan as well. So you guys will get to check that out and check out all the fun stuff we had to do at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The inductees are in there as well. It's just a lot of cool stuff. But I don't want to reveal too much. There's a lot of cool. There's stuff I want to wait till you watch and then check out. So, all right. But yeah, like we said, that's going to do it for episode 158, and we'll see you next week. And remember, as always, folks, keep in the zone.
Holla.
Thank you for watching MinneZona Sports Live. Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for live show broadcast. And as Voldy likes to say, follow us on all the socials medias.